We're back today with a delicious cookie recipe. These cookies are basically sugar cookies filled with tons of M&M chocolate candies. They're so good and I'm gonna show you how to make them today. But not only that, I wanted to go a little bit behind the scenes and teach you more about the science behind baking. So in addition to this recipe, we'll be talking all about the science tidbits, tips, and tricks that go into baking really delicious cookies. So let's just jump right into making this recipe. And any baking recipe that you make should start off with you measuring all of the ingredients and taking out all of the equipment that you need and placing it on the counter. This helps you just set up and become really organized, so that way when you're making the recipe, you can focus solely on the recipe and not trying to measure your flour or making sure you actually have brown sugar in your pantry. It's all already out and ready to go. This is what we refer to as mise en place in the culinary world. Mise en place is just a fancy French term that means to put in place. But this is what you're gonna want to do every time you get ready to bake to set yourself up for success. When we're talking about getting all of your supplies ready, one really important step is making sure that you correctly measure your flour. Flour weights can vary depending on how you measure it. If you do the scoop your measuring cup in the flour and scoop it right into your bowl, that's gonna result in a very different measurement than if you properly either weigh or scoop your flour using a spoon and a knife to level it off. Flour is naturally a structure builder in our baked goods, and if you have too much flour, it's not going to allow your cookies to properly spread. So this measurement is really important. So to properly measure your flour with a measuring cup or by volume, all you need to do is grab a spoon and start fluffing up your flour. This will make sure that there's enough air in between the flour and that it's not packed down together. Then gently scoop it into your measuring cup and level it off with a knife. This will ensure that you have a perfectly packed cup of flour and will result in perfect cookies. Now it's time to actually start mixing up our cookie dough. And to do this, you'll first need to grab your butter, granulated sugar, and brown sugar, as well as some cream cheese, which we're using as an extra flavor enhancer, and it's also an additional fat in the cookies. Throw that all into your stand mixer bowl. You can also use a hand mixer and just throw everything in a large bowl. It's really important at this stage that both your butter and your cream cheese are room temperature. You may ask why that's important, and it all has to do with the mixing method that we're using. To make these cookies, we're using a creaming mixing method. It's common in many other drop cookies and many other desserts that you make. In order to use the creaming mixing method, you have to have a soft fat that's vigorously beaten with your sugar. You'll want to cream the butter and sugars together for about 2 minutes until the mixture is light and fluffy. This creaming mixing method provides numerous benefits to our cookies. It's going to help our cookies leaven or rise, and this is because we're incorporating air into the fat throughout this process. After you're done creaming, you'll add in your egg and vanilla. Now I want to stop there because eggs play a super important role in baking. Eggs are another way to help build structure in your baked goods, but they also do so much more than that. The main way that eggs provide structure is when their proteins start to become coagulated, and this usually happens during the baking process. Eggs also, especially the egg yolk, help to give additional flavor and browning to the entire cookie. We also can't forget that eggs help to bind all of our ingredients together, and this is from the emulsifiers that lie within the egg. Now that we have all of our wet ingredients combined, it's time to turn to the dry ingredients. For this recipe, we'll be using all-purpose flour, as well as baking soda, baking powder, and fine sea salt. All of these dry ingredients play different roles in the cookie, so I'm going to explain a little bit more. Both baking soda and baking powder are used as leaveners in this recipe. Leaveners help our cookies to rise up and become those beautifully puffed cookies that we all know and love. Now I have different videos explaining all about baking soda and baking powder. I'll link those above. But what you need to know is that these are essential for getting our cookies to rise. Okay, so let's chat about salt for a minute. Salt is an important ingredient no matter what you're cooking. Whether it's baked goods or you're cooking vegetables, meat, salt helps enhance the flavor of all the other ingredients. It's really essential for getting a balanced flavor especially when we're talking about baked goods, because we want to amplify some of these other ingredients that we're putting in the cookie dough, and salt helps to do exactly that. I like to go ahead and combine all of my dry ingredients in one bowl, whisk them together, just to make it super easy when you're pouring them and incorporating them with the wet ingredients. With the mixer on low, go ahead and start slowly incorporating the dry ingredients with the wet. You'll want to make sure that your mixer is on slow just so that you're not spraying out flour everywhere. This step, you can keep going just until the flour is mixed in and you can't see any remaining white streaks. You're gonna have a pretty sticky dough at this stage in the game. Now, once our flour comes in contact with water, which many of the other ingredients that we're using in this cookie have some form of water in them, you start to get a reaction that causes the formation of gluten. There are some baked goods, like bread, where we want a really high gluten formation. But with things that are more tender and light and fluffy, like cakes or cookies, we don't want too much gluten formation, which means that at this stage, it's really important to just mix the ingredients until they're combined and not to overmix. Overmixing can result in more tough cookies, so make sure to pay attention when you're mixing at this stage. Moving right along, we're almost done with this dough. We of course have to add in some mix-ins, which in the case of this cookie are going to be our milk chocolate M&M candies. At this stage, you'll be done with your mixer, so you can put that away, and we're gonna transfer over to a silicone spatula. This ensures that none of the M&Ms break up while we're stirring, and we still have these nice, large, pretty M&Ms in our final cookie. At this point, grab a 3 tablespoon cookie scoop and start scooping your dough onto a parchment-lined baking sheet. After you have all of your cookies scooped out, we're gonna do a little trick to make sure that your cookies look really pretty when they come out of the oven. This is kind of a little behind-the-scenes food stylist hack, but you'll grab your extra half a cup of M&Ms and start placing them on the dough balls. This is gonna help when the cookies bake down, so that way we still have nice pretty M&Ms that are on top and showing on our cookies, and they're not just all mixed in with the rest of the dough. Of course, this isn't a requirement, but I do think it looks really pretty, and it helps your cookies to look really appetizing to eat. So if you wanna go the extra step, I definitely encourage it. We're going to allow the dough to sit in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes to firm up. This is especially helpful if you have really sticky dough, to just firm everything up so that way they don't spread too quickly in the oven. This is a great time to start preheating your oven. We're going to preheat our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And this will give our oven the proper time to actually come up to the full temperature. Fun fact, a lot of home ovens don't heat as well as they all claim to do. So giving your oven the proper time, about 30 to 45 minutes to properly preheat, is gonna ensure that your baked goods bake at an accurate temperature. I also personally love to have an oven thermometer that you can rest in your oven and just ensure that it's reaching the proper temperature. This will help just make sure that your cookies are nicely browned, they're set in the middle, and everything looks really good when you go to pull them out of the oven. Once the cookie dough is done chilling, you'll pop them into the oven and give them about 16 to 20 minutes to fully bake. We're looking for a golden brown cookie that's set in the middle, and then you'll know that they're done. Now here is another food styling hack for you. Right as the cookies come out of the oven, you're going to grab either a cookie cutter or a glass, just something that's a little bit bigger than your cookie. You'll simply toss the cookie around in the cookie cutter, and this is gonna help give you perfectly round edges. It's another hack that we like to use when we're making cookies look super pretty for pictures, but it's also something that you could use in your everyday life, especially if some of your cookies turn out a little wonky. These cookies are really super delicious. They're thick, they're soft, they're chewy. Not sure how much more you could want in a cookie. These are really good, and I hope that you make them at home. So as always, for the full recipe, you can go to the link in the description below. It will be there along with some of my favorite baking tools that you might want to purchase to stock up your kitchen with. And if you really enjoy the science behind baking, be sure to check out this full blog post. I have even more information than we talked about in this video in that post, and it's all about the nerdy behind the scenes science of making the perfect cookie. All right, thanks for following along and sticking with me through this video. I can't wait to see all your M&M sugar cookies. Until then, I'll see you in the next video.